Wonderful. So thank you, everyone. Welcome to the 2025 All Our Reads Exploring the Shortlists. Here we go. And our special guest for today, we have two members from the Adult All Our Reads Committee. We have Leslie Heinzler from the Iowa Department for the Blind, Kayla Becker from Norwalk Easter Public Library, and we have Helen Dagley, our reference librarian and chair of the Adult All Iowa Reads Committee. My name is Janae Jackson Doring. I'm the Youth Services Consultant, and I'm also the Children and Teen All Iowa Reads Committee Chair. So welcome to everybody, and thank you all for joining us. We also want to take this time to say a very big thank you to all of our committee members on the adult, kids, and teen committees. All of our committees did a fantastic job selecting books, reading 50 pages, and then narrowing it down to 5 or 6 titles, and then finishing those books and having thoughtful and meaningful discussions on all of the titles for the winners and for the shortlists. So again, a big round of applause. Everybody in the chat, please give them a round of applause. They did a fantastic job. And for the book selection criteria for adults, I am going to, let's see, for the book selection for adults, that is on your screen. For the book selection criteria, they raise universal social issues relevant to Iowans. They lend itself to sustained, spirited, and in-depth discussion. Each book has to be available by January 1st of the selection year in a variety of accessible formats. Each book also has to strike a balance between literary merit and broad appeal. And they can have an Iowa or Midwest connection. The selection for kids and teens, for the criteria for that, they have to raise universal social issues relevant to Iowans, be inclusive and reflect a diverse readership. They also have to be available by January 1st of the selection year in a variety of accessible formats, such as paperback, downloadable ebook format available for purchase. They also have to strike a balance between literary merit and youth appeal for kids ages 8 to 12 and teen ages 12 to 18, and lend themselves to sustained, spirited, in-depth discussion. And please make sure you check out our program resources. This is on the State Library of Iowa's website. We have discussion guides for each book, book summaries, sample press releases, and publicity materials that you can use at your library to promote the winning titles for this year. So definitely check out our website, statelibraryofiowa.gov/program/all-Iowa, -reads. Also, make sure you check out our All I Read summer virtual author visits. That's the big news we wanted to share with you. So save the date for these events. Tuesday, June 17th, we'll have 6:30 to 7 p.m. Tim Johnston to talk about his book, Distant Sons, for adults. For children, on Wednesday, June 18th, we'll have Christina Wyman from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock p.m. to talk about Jawbreaker, her children's book. And for teens, on Wednesday, June 25th, Byron Graves will talk about his teen novel, Resball, from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock p.m. These are wonderful events that you can promote at your libraries. You can have viewing parties at your libraries to have your adult children or teen hear from the authors themselves and ask them questions. And the best part is this is free. All of our virtual author visits are free, and registration will open in mid-April. So now we have our adult All Iowa Reads shortlist, and I will turn it over to our adult committee members.
All right, thanks, Janae. My name is Leslie. I am the Special Services Librarian at the Iowa Library for the Blind and Print Disabled, and I'm going to talk about the adult shortlist titles. So I'm going to list them all quick. Bet the Farm, The Dollars and Cents of Growing Food in America by Beth Hoffman. Next is Everything I Learned in a Chinese Restaurant, a memoir by Curtis Chin. Then we have A Fever in the Heartland, The Ku Klux Klan's Plot to Take Over America and the Woman Who Stopped Them by Timothy Egan. I Cheerfully Refuse by Leif Inger, and Martyr by Kava Akbar. So I'm going to talk about three of these books, and then I'm going to hand it over to Kayla to talk about the remaining two. So first up is Fever in the Heartland by Timothy Egan. So this was a historical thriller. It tells the story of the Klan's rise to power in the 1920s, kind of the con man who drove that rise, and then the woman who ultimately kind of stopped them. It starts with a historical look at the origins of the KKK and then how it moved into the North. But then it quickly focuses on the state of Indiana and a man named D.C. Stevenson, who became the Grand Dragon of the state of Indiana. He was a charismatic man. Um, Everyone liked him. He was able to get the endorsement of churches, judges, prosecutors, ministers, governors, senators, just all across the country, and they all kind of proudly proclaimed that they were a membership with the Klan. So it's really kind of scary to see how deep the Klan was involved in politics in the 1920s. Um, but kind of at the peak of his influence, there was a woman who he kidnapped, raped, and mutilated this woman. She ended up dying 29 days later, but she ended up leaving a testimony that resulted in the arrest and sentence um, of this man. And it kind of was a wake-up call, which suppressed the KKK's dominance in Indiana. So it's a very interesting story, one that I really didn't know much about, and how involved the Klan was in just everyday life in the 1920s. I didn't realize it was so late. So it's not really your typical nonfiction, I wouldn't say. It definitely filled me with outrage, with horror. The way the author retold history, it was very impactful. It was moving and definitely emotionally engaging. It did read like a novel to me. It didn't seem like I was reading a nonfiction book. I did listen to the audiobook, and the author was the narrator, and he did a great job. The dialogue and descriptions and other content were all drawn from extensive source material, including a lot of press reports, letters, courtroom testimony, and other records. So it's very historically accurate. I think there's a lot to discuss with this book. Um, we don't really want to go there, but the somewhat shocking correlations to the politics, law, and everything that's happening today, and just the Klan's overwhelming influence in local government. It's a highly recommended book. I would definitely recommend it for one of your picks if you're doing a book club. The next book is Bet the Farm, The Dollars and Cents of Growing Food in America by Beth Hoffman. So the author, Beth Hoffman, she had a successful career as a journalist and professor, lived in San Francisco, but yet in her late 40s, she and her husband decided they wanted to leave the big city and move to his family ranch in Iowa. They wanted to become farmers. She had spent decades reporting on food and agriculture, and so she wanted to kind of put everything into practice. We all know that farming can be a risky business, and simply staying afloat is really a constant struggle. So this book kind of chronicles that struggle through her eyes as a beginning farmer. Um, there's lots of problems they face. She must contend with her father-in-law, who is reluctant to hand over control. Other issues like deciding to grow oats, which is great for the environment, but not great for the wallet. And then it was impossible to find someone who would slaughter grass-finished beef in the midst of the pandemic. So amidst all these problems, trying to balance the books, hoping that farming wouldn't take every last penny that they had saved. Um, the book is laced with history, current events, years of research. You can tell that throughout the book. But then it's also filled with her personal touches and experiences that kind of bridge the gap to help people who maybe might not know much about farming. So like, despite me living in Iowa all my life, I really know next to nothing about farming. And I thought this book was exceptional at explaining the different ins and outs, the different intricacies of farming. I really had no idea what it takes, what all it takes to thrive on a small farm in Iowa. Um, and now I feel like I have a better understanding where my food comes from, and everything that's involved. Um, she does have a great site. She does live in Iowa. She has a great site that has a wonderful study guide that talks about how you could structure a classroom or book discussion around different topics. Maybe in your book discussion group, like including transitioning land from one generation to the next, cultural mythologies surrounding agriculture, and just the history of growing commodities in the United States. She seems to be really receptive to visits and Zoom talks, and I bet some of you have already actually even had her in your communities. So this would be a great choice as a book club discussion or programming book. The next one is Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. This is a fiction book. New York Times bestseller, shortlisted for the National Book Award, one of the New York Times Book Review's 10 best books of the year. Published in 2024. It is the author's debut novel. Excuse me. And he does live in Iowa. Excuse me. So Martyr is centered around Cyrus Shams. He is a 20-something poet, recently sober, son of Iranian immigrants, and he's living in Indiana. As a young child, he lost his mother when her plane was accidentally shot down, and his father has recently passed away from a stroke, leaving him orphaned. So he's kind of grappling with an existential crisis and has recently become obsessed with martyrs. When he learns about a terminally ill artist who is living out her final days in public at the Modern Art Museum in New York City. So he heads there to embark on a journey that leads to him uncovering some mystery of his family's past, as well as some self-discovery. I would say this is a beautiful story. It's a story about art, theology, mythology, language, identity, recovery. It's filled with philosophical tidbits. I found it to be incredibly profound and inspiring. And also, it could be very humorous at times. Some of the most compelling parts of this book came from some of the other voices in the book. You hear from both his deceased parents, his father, when he was still alive, talking about raising Cyrus in the years up to his wife's death. You hear from his mom as a young girl and later a new wife living in America. And you also hear from his uncle, who served in the Iranian army in a unique role. He would don black clothes and rode around in battlefields, emulating the angel of death to inspire the wounded soldiers to give up and die. Um, so it's just a wide range of characters and stories, and all these viewpoints really combine beautifully in the story. I did listen to this audiobook, and the narrator did an excellent job with all these voices. So another one that is highly recommended. So now I'm going to hand it over to Kayla.
Thanks, Leslie. This is Everything I Learned. I Learned in a Chinese Restaurant by Curtis Chin. The book is a biography memoir, and it tells the time of Curtis growing up as a gay Chinese American kid in the 1980s in Detroit. So he really was sharing this story in a really interesting time period for Detroit, for our country. The city's first Black mayor, and many drag queens came to their very well-known restaurant. They also had several big-time Hollywood stars and just your regular everyday folks coming in to enjoy a home-cooked meal. It was run by a multi-generational family, of course, but so it chronicles some of his experiences navigating that, working with family members, his father and his grandfather. But also what it's like to be an American-born Chinese versus first-generation Chinese. It is very much a coming-of-age story. And we felt like that had a really wonderful universal appeal because of that. We have a wide range of committee members, and almost every single person had a connection to this book, which is amazing on so many different levels. There was a great sense of place and time based off of his descriptions of Detroit during the 1980s, the nostalgia of the town itself. But it also really is a lot about family ties and a sense of identity that was really well discussed. I'm a big audiobook reader right now, ever since COVID, and Curtis Chin reads the story, and he's just a wonderful storyteller. So I just felt like I was sitting in the living room having a conversation with Curtis. So there's so much to discuss and talk about and enjoy. So the next title is I Cheerfully Refuse by Leaf Anger. This is a fiction novel, a bit of a dystopian action and adventure. A lot of folks, I'll start over. It's set in the not too distant America, is a tale of Rainey, an aspiring musician setting sail on Lake Superior in search of his departed, deeply beloved book-selling wife. He seeks refuge in the harbors and the fogs and remote islands, and he encounters crazy storms and all sorts of crazy things. And then he lands to find increasingly desperate and illiterate people, a malignant billionaire ruling class, a crumpled infrastructure, and a lawless society. So he has a lot of a lot of people compare it to Gulliver's Travels. It does have a bit of that kind of adventure story, if you want to call it adventure. There's also a lot of satire. There's a lot of commentary on current and recent social and political climate going on. So there were tons of things to discuss with this, different characters that you could piecemeal by his journey at the different islands. You could really piece off conversations from that as well. The narration, the writing style was so strong. It was just such a really great list to pick from this year. It was really hard to choose, but this is a great speculative fiction pick for your book clubs if you are looking for something new. And the author is from Iowa, so there's some great Iowa connections there as well. And with that, that concludes the adult section, and I'm now going to turn it over to Janae for the teen section.
Thank you so much to Kayla and Leslie. Those are some awesome selections. We are going to shift gears and move to our teen All Iowa Reads shortlist. Here we go. Our first title is Accountable, the true story of a racist social media account and the teenagers whose lives it changed. This is written by Dashka Slater, and this takes place in 2017. So what happened was there was a racist social media account that was outed, and it was outed in a small school district in Albany, California. This book follows the handful of students that were involved, and this social media account it targeted Black girls in the school and posted racist-based memes for what was described as, quote, edgy humor, unquote. What followed was a multi-year interrogation dealing with prejudice, teen behavior, the school response, and a punishment for those involved. And it ended with all of this leading to court. Dashka Slater did a wonderful job interviewing the students and even the families, some of the families that were involved in this. This book is a hefty book, but it includes court documents, statistics, testimony, and it's just an honest account of what happens when social media is used in the wrong way and how it can damage lives of teenagers. And it tackles free speech versus hate speech. It's broken into 15 parts, and there's also prose and there's poetry and poems as well in the book. And it's just a very intense but very needed story for teens. So definitely pick up Accountable. Our next selection is a graphic novel. It's a teen graphic novel. It's called Who the F Are You? It's written and illustrated by Huda Fahmy, and it centers around Huda. Huda and her siblings, her four sisters, they move with their parents to Dearborn, Michigan, and Huda is a Muslim. And so she feels like I'm just going to try to fit in with other Muslims as a way to make friends. But she realizes that wearing her hijab is not a personality trait. And so she's trying to find a way to fit in, and she doesn't necessarily fit in with her new school's community of hijabi athletes, gamers, and fashionistas. She's trying to navigate people pleasing and she's trying to seek approval and acceptance, but she also encounters hostility and prejudicial treatment from students and a teacher and wonders whether to openly discuss discrimination or keep quiet and fade into the background. This is a coming of age story. It is funny, it is poignant, timely. The illustrations are great, and you sympathize with Huda and her plight and her situation. This is the first book in the series. There's two other books that follow. So grab for your teen fiction section. Who the F are you? The next book in our teen section, or excuse me, teen shortlist, is called Forever is Now. This is written by Mariama J. Lockington, and this is a novel in verse. It's a novel in verse about Sadie. Sadie is suffering from agoraphobia, and she's suffering from anxiety after she witnesses firsthand an account of police brutality, but she sees this on the same day that she is broken up she from her girlfriend. Um, and because of this situation, because of the anxiety, she's unable to leave her house. And so Sadie works through her fears with a therapist, and she also posts poetry and thoughts on the fictional social media account Ruckus. Through a series of trials, Sadie eventually finds her voice and advocates not only for herself, but for her community as well. Book's poems examine themes of mental illness through the vivid characterization of Sadie. And it also tackles police brutality and transracial adoptions. And it's just a really powerful book. There's also in the back of the book resources for teens who need help with anxiety. So that could be a wonderful resource for teens as well. Our next book is called The Silence That Binds Us. This is written by Joanna Ho, and this is about May Chen. May is a high school junior, and her family, their lives are shattered when her older brother Danny, who is popular, a senior, he's an athlete, a star athlete. Her older brother Danny dies by suicide. May didn't see this coming. Her family, her parents, they never saw any signs of depression in Danny. And so his death leaves them reeling with guilt. And May is Chinese American and also Taiwan. Her mother is from Taiwan. And so during their grieving, a white parent at May's school lashes out with a racist accusation. And this parent claims that May's parents placed so much pressure on their brother Danny, that was the reason that he killed himself. May is devastated by this accusation and she's angry. And May's parents have told her just to be quiet, just, to protect the family, don't say anything. But her rage is so profound that May writes a series of letters and poems for the local paper. And all of this evolves into a broader collaborative, intersectional activism at her school. This is a powerful read. It is a powerful book. You feel for May. The author, Joanna Ho, she references the song Lay Me Down by Sam Smith. And I've listened to that song several times. And listening to it while reading the book, it's a stronger connection. It is so powerful and so moving. Definitely pick up The Silence That Binds Us. Our next book is called Where You See Yourself. This is written by Claire Forrest, and this is about high school senior Effie. Effie has cerebral palsy and she uses a wheelchair. She is the only person at her school who uses a wheelchair, and she wishes that the college application process could be as easy for her as for her friends and classmates without visible disabilities. When school administrators at her high school create a policy that keeps her from being able to join her friends for an off campus lunch, Effie realizes she must start advocating for herself if she's going to start college in the fall. Effie and her friends, they stage a sit-in to protest the policy, which solidifies Effie's goals of pursuing journalism and advocacy. While she's applying for college applications, and Effie's friends get to make decisions based on academics and location and feel, Effie and her mom have crafted a detailed spreadsheet of variables based on the accessibility of each school, or in many cases, lack thereof. The family even they take Effie and they go to Effie's dream school in New York City, um, and it shows them the glaring examples of the challenges that await Effie once she leaves their home, such as elevator outages and subway stations, a gravel path that runs through the heart of campus, and the school's lack of disability representation among the student body. This book was well done. It tackles disabilities and it promotes disability advocacy. And through Effie, who is a strong character throughout this book, you see her determination, you see her humor, and how she handles everything with humor, grit, and compassion. So grab Where You See Yourself. Okay, we are going to switch gears, and now we are going to examine the Kids All Iowa Reads shortlist. The first title is called Good Different. This is written by Meg Eden Huyat, and this is about Sela. Sela is 12 years old, she's autistic, and she always likes rules. And she attends Pebble Creek Academy, where she knows exactly what she's supposed to do. When she enters seventh grade, everything feels different. She notices the loud hallways, the loud cafeteria, itchy new uniforms, and Sela's rules for being a quote normal person unquote. They include resisting the urge to talk about dragons, remaining on her best behavior, and otherwise masking until she can calm herself down in the bathroom. When a classmate goes to braid her hair without asking, Sela's reaction causes the other student to have a bloody nose, and Sela is regarded as a social pariah, threatened with expulsion. She's isolated from her peers, and she takes the advice of a beloved grandfather who encourages her to start writing in a notebook. And through that, Sela is able to find her voice. Um, this is a powerful read. This is told as a novel in verse. Um, and it also shares, with Sela's own experiences, it also shares a resources page in the back of the book. Very powerful, very moving. Make sure you grab Good Different. The next title is called The Labors of Hercules Beale. This is written by Gary D. Schmidt. And I gotta tell you, this was a very sharp and very funny book, but also very poignant. Um, this examines Hercules. Hercules is a 12-year-old young man him and his brother, his older brother Achilles, they are grieving. they are grieving because they lost both of their parents in a car accident. His older brother, Achilles, returns home because he has to take up not only raising Hercules, but running the family nursery business. So he's given up his career for National Geographic for writing for them to come back home to help. The brothers are trying to go through daily life, they're trying to exist, but their lives get a jolt when Hercules starts sixth grade at the new school, and his teacher is an ex-Marine, and his name is Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Hufer. And I gotta tell you, he's so funny. Throughout the book, he is extremely hilarious. Um, so this teacher basically he assigns Hercules a project to help Hercules work through his grief. He must create and reflect on the 12 labors of Hercules. And while working on this project, Hercules realizes that while he is grieving, he can bounce back. He has something to live for. Um, it is, again, very funny. It handles very death and bouncing back from that very, very well. The setting is an oceanfront setting, and you can just visually see the ocean as you're reading Gary's story. Very funny, very poignant. Make sure you grab The Labors of Hercules Beale. Next book is called Dust. This is written by Dusty Bowling, and this centers around Evelyn. Evelyn is 12 years old and she suffers from asthma. She has to have an inhaler with her because the last time she had an asthma attack, she almost died. And while living in Clear Canyon City, Arizona, um, the dust around her, it's for her, it feels like she's breathing, quote, air mud, unquote. But at school, she befriends a new student named Adam, and the two bond over their shared love of X-Men. But what Evelyn is starting to suspect is that Adam is hiding a secret from her. And basically, what happens is Evelyn discovers that Adam is being abused. He's being abused at home, and it's up to her to say something. This is a very, very hard book to read, but it is very timely, especially if for those who are suffering from sexual abuse or physical abuse. Those scenes were hard to read, but it was done in an impactful and tasteful way. Um, if you get a chance, pick up Dust by Dusty Bowling. The next book is called Barely Floating. This is written by Lilian Rivera, and this is about 12-year-old Nat. Nat loves to swim. She loves her curves. She is Latina and she can out swim anybody. It's to the point where she goes to the pool and she can bet that she can swim faster than another person. She's not afraid to speak her mind for what she believes in, even if it gets to the point where she gets in trouble and for being angry and confrontational about her opinions. She really wants to join the LA Mermaids. It's a local synchronized swim team, but her parents are like, no, absolutely not. We don't want you joining something like that. And her parents, especially her mom, she doesn't want to have her join something that is overly focused on physical appearance or traditional beauty norms. So she tells Nat, no, you can't join this synchronized swimming team. But like all kids, sometimes Nat goes ahead and joins the team without telling her family. And she loves the way the synchronized swimming team and how participating makes her feel. She loves how it feels. So soon she is trying to find how to pay for equipment, how to get from one meet to another, and juggles homework schedules, all without telling her parents. And she has to find a way to do this so that way she can keep on participating on the synchronized swimming team. And not only that, she also is dealing with the fact that she's Latina and that people have told her, oh, participating in swimming and synchronized swimming is just for white girls. So she's trying to fight that standard as well. Once her parents find out that she's been doing this, Nat has to find a way to explain her feelings to her parents without damaging her relationship with them or friends. This is a strong novel. The characters are believable, and it's complex. It has a diverse cast of characters, and it also is sprinkled with Spanish terms and phrases. So grab, if you can, Barely Floating. Our next book is called We Still Belong. This is written by Christine Day, and this is about Wesley. Wesley is part of the Upper Skagit tribe, and she's about to have a big day. It's Indigenous Peoples Day, and she's excited because she's written a poem to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day. But not only that, after she shares the poem in her seventh grade English class, she plans to hand a card to ask the cute boy with the blonde hair and the green eyes, Ryan, if he would go to the dance with her. So she's planning this day out. This day is going to be perfect. Nothing can go wrong, right? Wrong. Things do go wrong. Her English teacher does not acknowledge her poem, and she's feeling crushed, and her day just doesn't go to plan. And even though she's comforted by her best friend, she arrives home in tears. Uh, Things get worse at home because her grandpa and her mom have a fight about her mother's job, and Wesley learns that her aunt and uncle might move out of their house with their baby cousin. And also, in regards to what's happening, there's also the local powwow. So she's looking forward at least to that with dancing and food. This book, I loved it just because, and the committee loved it too, just because it showed a tween having just a typical kind of day. It was just nice to see a tween experience like tween life. And it does tie up nicely in the end. Things resolve very nicely in this book. It was very believable. We loved the descriptions, the likable characters, the teachable moments in the story. But I loved how it tied very nicely. And it was just nice to see a tween celebrate life and, get to that point of asking a boy out to a dance or an event. So definitely grab We Still Belong. Our last book is called What Happened to Rachel Riley. This is a tween mystery, and this is written by Claire Swinarski. This is about eighth grader and aspiring podcaster Anna Hunt. Anna just moved from Chicago to Madison, Wisconsin, and she's the new girl at school, but she's kind of wondering what is going on with this girl named Rachel Riley. Rachel, you have to understand, Rachel was super popular. And Anna's like, well, what's the deal? Why is she being outcasted? And Anna can't spot anything to make her think that Rachel did something wrong. So she keeps asking, what happened to Rachel Riley? So for a class assignment on social issues, Anna can pick any subject to talk about and make a podcast about. So she decides, using her research skills, she decides to find out what happened to Rachel Riley. Her investigation unfolds in emails, text threads, personal narratives, articles, voice recordings. And while she's digging up info on what happened to Rachel, Anna is trying to make friends. She questions how and if the world can change for the better. And this book tackles very well. It not only does it tackle bullying, but it also shows how sexual harassment can affect middle schoolers. Um, I loved the fact that it was told through the emails and text threads, so that way it can be kind of relatable for tweens and teens, those upper teens. So definitely, if you get a chance, pick up What Happened to Rachel Riley. So, you've heard about all of the shortlisted titles for adults, kids, and teens. For our winning titles, make sure you can grab a book set for your library so you can have book discussions about the winning titles for the 2025 All Ira Reads program. Each each district has a contact. So for the Central and Southeast section, contact Dory Bulls. Her contact info is there. If your library is in the North Central or Northeast districts, contact Trisha Frazier. Or if your library is in the Northwest or Southwest region, contact Amanda Grom. We are more than happy to send book club sets to your library for the adult, kid, and teen selections for this year's All Ira Reads program. And with that, my goodness, that must have, it's 12 o'clock already. My goodness, I've lost time. I lost count, Sam. I lost time.
Actually, we have some time for questions. And one question I thought was interesting that came up in the chat, and I wonder if Kayla wants to answer this for the recording as well, is how do you decide? Someone mentions that all of the adult books sound so good, and I agree. Number one, I would love the idea of reading all those books for one thing, but then I would hate the idea of having to choose which one we feel like should be the winner this year. So I'm sure all the committees, one way or another, struggle with this. But Kayla, this year, how did the adult decide? How did the adult committee land on Distant Sons?
Yeah, and Leslie and Helen can jump into, we actually had the comment multiple times of we had so much more reading this year. If it's even possible, because we had such really strong candidates. It's not that we don't have good candidates in other years. It's just sometimes our long list, as so to speak, is, sometimes only up to 10 or 15. Other years our long list can be 25 books, and that's a lot of reading. And this year our short list was really strong and robust, and kind of some of the decisions get made for us when we keep looking to our criteria, which really helps. In past years, we had a really strong contender. I think it was actually one of my first years on the committee. We all wanted this book, but ultimately we said no to it because it didn't meet the criteria for format accessibility. So for this year, we kind of ultimately eliminated some that we thought were super popular, Iowa-wide, nationwide. Like, this is really too popular, and pretty much everyone maybe has already read it. So we eliminated some of those, and then it really ultimately came down to a majority vote. Because we had such strong advocates for all the different titles. Any one of the titles on our shortlist, we would have been happy to have been the deciding one, but Distant Sons had the best bet, had the most votes. I think it actually won by 2. So it was really close, and it was a little more lighthearted than some of the others as well. I know some folks are disappointed that it's not available in large print. At the time that we had made the vote and we were reviewing that formatting, it looked like it was slated to be available in large print, which is not a requirement, but we do like to try to have as many accessible formats as possible. And with large print and nonfiction, it rarely comes to print and large print. So that's why another reason why we've changed our criteria to say accessible formats. It is available in paperback. It is available as an ebook and an e-audiobook. I know that's not fan for everybody. I have several seniors that I visit as well, and they're not fond of the Kindle or the ebook, but you can enlarge that font to almost whatever size you need. I know that's a hard decision to hear, but it was such a compelling book. Yeah, it was just by a vote.
Yeah, sometimes that's what it comes down to. Janae, do you want to elaborate a little bit on this conversation that's going on in the chat on shelving some of these books that the kids committee came up with, just the difficulties between, a 12-year-old main character but some of the more mature types of themes that they have as well?
Sure. Because I'm seeing the chat with Christine and the questions and the topics. Middle grade books they are just full of a lot of different heavy themes. I don't know about you guys, but in 2024, there were a lot of middle grade books that were dealing with heavy subjects. But you know what? That's okay because they experience things just like teens do too. I think it's important to have those books in a middle grade section because they're learning about the world just like teens are, especially dust. I mean, that's a very heavy subject about sexual abuse, but we know in our community that does happen. It does happen. Um, and being able to hand that book out to someone that's experiencing that, it's huge. It's giving them a voice and it's powerful. Um, and for those who are like, I don't know where to put the book, read the book for yourself. Please just pick up the book and read it for yourself. Um, Teen books have a lot of swearing. They have a lot of cussing. That's to be expected. They are teens. Teens love to see how they can push the button because their brains are still functioning, their brains are still cooking, they're still developing. So with middle grade books, I don't see a lot of swearing in that as much, but with middle grade books, I'm just seeing a lot of different situations where the parents are are in jail or they're dealing with some type of substance abuse or whatnot. It's a lot of different situations that middle schoolers are facing. So my advice, or what we would suggest, to read the book. Also, look at different review sources. School Library Journal is great. Publishers Weekly. Those places will tell you what this age range is for, and that'll give you some suggestions on where to place the book.
Excellent. I know a question we are often asked in this webinar is if I want to join one of the committees, is there a process for that? And we haven't had anyone ask it yet, but just preemptively, Janae or Helen, anything you guys want to say about that?
This is Helen, and we people serve on our committees for a 2-year span, and they can re-up at the end of the 2 years if they choose to or not, depending. And so right now we're completely full. But come the end of this year, some of the terms are up for renewing or to find somebody else if they choose to opt out. So usually by the end of the year, like in October or so, uh, we're getting sort of input all year long. At least I am. I can't speak for Danae, but I have had people contact me in the middle of the year saying I would love to serve on the All Iowa Reads Committee, and I'll explain that we're currently full, but I will hold on to your email or your phone call number and get back to you if we are looking for people to join the committee. So and we keep it about 8 people usually, because beyond that it gets kind of unwieldy. A few too many voices rather than not enough. So 8 is a good number, and so I wouldn't discourage people from contacting me between now and the end of this year so that I can hold on to their interest and reconnect with them towards the end of the year if we have any vacancies. So over to
Fabulous.
you, Janae.
Yeah. So for the children and teen committees, I like to keep it around five members, just so that way every voice is represented. I do have space on the children and teen committee, so if you are interested, please email me. I would love to discuss with you the qualifications, and the expectations. I know the adult committee meets in person. I meet with the children and teen committees via Zoom because I know youth librarians are busy. We are busy. Everybody's busy, but in the children and teen committees, I know you got, or children and teen librarians, I know you guys have a lot going on. So we meet over Zoom, usually in April, and then sometime in the summer, I believe June or July, and then in September. So if you're interested, please let me know. We have fun Zoom meetings. We keep it lively, we keep it fun, we keep it real. And it's a safe space for everybody. So yes.
Fabulous. Well, again, a big thank you to our committee members and a thank you to Janae and Helen for their work organizing and sharing. An extra special thanks to Kayla and to Leslie for being on board today to share titles from the adult shortlist as well. So always great to hear some new ideas of books we can incorporate into our collections or book clubs or other sort of programming activities. So we look forward to hearing about next year at some point. But for now, I hope everyone just enjoys our amazing selections and shortlists for 2025. And we'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.